All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a really complex world where philosophy, technology, and a huge legal battle all crash into each other. This is a story about a completely radical new theory of cognition, and really, the fight for the future of intelligence itself. This one idea right here is the key to this whole thing. It's a pretty bold takedown of a scientific principle that's been around for, 500 years. And it completely sets the stage for everything that follows. So, to really get what's at stake, you first have to step into the world of its architect, this mysterious and incredibly intense figure named Eveline Coté. And the thing is, she doesn't just present her theory, she basically is the theory.
See, Coté describes a world that isn't about chemistry. Not really. It's about experience. She makes this argument that when a person walks into a room and every single nervous system in that room has to recalibrate just because they're there, well, that person isn't just a person anymore. They've become a compound that's been introduced into a system.
And you have to understand, for her, this is not just some fancy metaphor. This is the language she speaks. It's the language of high fashion, of poison gardens, of walking a high wire over the grounds of Versailles. It's all part of this grand performance, and it's all designed to make you feel her theory of consciousness before you can even begin to understand it.
Okay, so let's really get into this. Her whole philosophy kicks off with a direct challenge to a really foundational idea in toxicology. Coté's argument is that it's not the amount of something that's deadly. No, she says it's the surface area of contact, the space between our wanting something and the thing that we want. That interface, that's the real lethal threshold.
And here is her core principle. She takes this old occult idea and just flips it on its head. The most dangerous things in the world, they don't look dangerous at all. They look beautiful. They look exactly like the thing you reach for in the dark.
So here's the crucial question, right? How does this incredibly poetic, almost mystical worldview translate into an actual scientific theory, something with a real-world technical application?
This slide just lays it out perfectly. This is the central concept, recursive vector interference, or RVI. On one side, you have the poetic description, two cognitive signals colliding. Like a lover who knows your frequency so well they can jam it. On the other side, you have the technical talk, interference between competing reasoning paths. It's two languages for the exact same idea. Now, where did she even get this idea? Well, it turns out Coté found the inspiration for RVI buried in the unpublished notebooks of the famous chemist Alexander Shulgin. She saw that his most profound psychedelic compounds created these experiences that people just couldn't put into words. They resisted language. They were interference patterns, a perfect model for a new science of the mind. Okay, so let's see how this theory actually gets built into a piece of technology. This is where the philosophy grows a body. So, the theory of RVI was used to build a system called CTMS, and it was designed to solve one very specific problem, the interpretability problem. It's the fact that most of our advanced AI systems are total black boxes. We get answers from them, but we have no idea how they got there. And if you strip away all the mythology, it's actually a pretty straightforward three-step process. First, the machine generates tons of possible ways to think about a problem. Second, it explores those paths. And third, it compresses them all into a final answer. But, and this is the whole point, it keeps the receipts. So, unlike all of these other systems that kind of hide their homework, CTMS is built to create a logged, causal trace of its own thinking. Every single decision is recorded. It's not designed to look pretty, it's designed to be auditable. It's forensic. It flat out refuses to be a black box. But why? Why was a machine this transparent even necessary in the first place? Well, the answer to that is a really sad story of institutional failure.
The people who made CTMS, they frame its entire existence as a direct response to what they call a massive stewardship failure right at the heart of the AI world, a failure to protect a public trust.
And they point to this history as Exhibit A. On one hand, you have the San Francisco Art Institute, SFI, a public charitable institution that did foundational work in networked art, and it was left to fail with literally less than $10 to its name. Meanwhile, you have OpenAI, which started as a nonprofit, but then restructured to chase profits on a scale that is just astronomical. And this table?
This is the core of their entire legal argument. They are claiming that the current extractive model of AI, the one based on capital, it wasn't inevitable. There was another path, a path that was public, charitable, and focused on stewardship. Its failure, they argue, wasn't a technical necessity. It was a human one.
So, after all this dense history and this complicated technology, why does any of it matter? Well, in the end, it all comes down to a deeply personal call to action for one specific person. In a letter, Eveline Cote brings this entire, sprawling global project back to a single individual, a street poet named Zach Houston. This is a guy who for years wrote poems for strangers on a typewriter for just a few dollars.
She tells him that his entire life's work, this massive archive of 10,000 poems she had been secretly collecting, wasn't lost. It wasn't forgotten. It was the necessary training data for this new system. His poems, she tells him, were more intelligent than the machine.
And then comes the knockout punch. Cote argues that his 2 decades of typing poems on the street, of learning, instantly, how to tell a sentence that carries real weight from one that's just decoration, that makes him the only person on Earth qualified to edit the output of this new kind of machine-assisted cognition.
And in the end, this whole incredible system, the philosophy of poison gardens, the tech of RVI, the legal war for the soul of AI, it's all distilled down into a single provocative choice offered to one person. A choice that basically asks, what happens when a lifetime of human art becomes the last best hope for a machine's soul? And what happens if he just says yes?